to another place and actually use it. This past summer, I finally had my chance to see if 4 years of hard work was going to pay off. I'd say it did. I could actually communicate with my host family. The exchange has opened my eyes to a new world. Many people never get the opportunity to travel outside the country. To have that opportunity as a high school student has been absolutely wonderful. I met a person my age from Germany who, since we spent 2 weeks at her house and 2 at mine, have become a very good friend of mine. And even though there's an ocean between us, we'll stay friends for a very long time. And study abroad programs are becoming really popular, so I might end up in Germany sooner rather than later. This whole experience has shown me things living in a small town just can't show. People are still people across the globe with the same needs and dreams, and the differences between people are okay. Since going to Germany, I have decided to minor in German so I can continue learning more about the language. I hope to never stop learning about this wonderful language.
That warms a teacher's heart when you hear that. I'd like to introduce to you Lauren Moyer. She's been one of my students also since 8th grade. She also was a part of the exchange program this year and has quite an honor with the National German exam.
Good morning. At the end of German 2, I was inducted into the German National Honor Society, or Delta Epsilon Phi at EFCA, and currently I am the Vice President and very active in promoting German at EFCA. Concerning the AATG exam, students in German 2 to German 5 have the option each year to take a nationwide German exam administered by the American Association of Teachers of German. Each level has its own test designed to match the curriculum for the corresponding class. The students who score the best on the written exam are eligible to attend an interview, so teachers are able to evaluate the oral skills of German. After the interview process is completed, the top student from each AATG chapter is awarded an all-expense-paid trip to Germany. In all, about 44 trip prizes are awarded each year. I took this exam in German 2 and 3 and plan on taking it again this year. Last year I took the level 3 exam and scored in the 99th percentile. I was ranked number 1 out of 220 students at level 3 in our AATG chapter. I enjoy being able to see how I compare to other students across the nation and how the German program at EFCA compares to other schools. Every time I take the test, my knowledge of the German language improves, as stated by the testing chair regarding my interview. I could see that your German proficiency and fluency has expanded tremendously over the past year. You spoke with great correctness and a nice vocabulary. My fluency also improved because I took part in the exchange that EFCA has with its sister city, Eberbach, Germany. I traveled to Eberbach this summer and I stayed with the most amazing partner and family. I was able to experience a different culture and meet a friend who will last a lifetime. I now have a second family who just happens to live across the Atlantic. I was so sad to leave them, but overjoyed when Lena came in October. I will never forget this experience and will keep in touch with Lena for as long as I live. And as my sister said, she comes as a stranger, but leaves as a sister. I would go back to Germany in a heartbeat just to see my family there. Next year I plan on taking German 5 and hopefully getting a 5 on the AP exam to get college credit. In college, I will most likely minor in German and perhaps study abroad in Germany. But no matter what, I will return to Germany someday to visit my family.
And finally, I want to invite Erica Helms. Erica was a student of Spanish, has been for 3 years, when she decided to hop on over to the German program. And we were lucky to have her, and she has an experience I'm going to ask her to share about.
When I first started high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that I wanted to travel and learn more about foreign cultures. When I was in 10th grade, I decided to take German as a foreign language. From the very beginning, I really enjoyed it and was instantly successful. I really became even more interested in the language because of my teacher, Frau Weiss, who made each class period fun and entertaining as well as educational. The next year, I continued learning German in level 2. In the middle of the year, I had the opportunity to take the AATG exam, which would be testing my knowledge of the German language. I scored in the 92nd percentile, which then gave me the opportunity to have an interview with a few representatives from the AATG, and possibly win an all-expense-paid trip to Germany. I didn't win the prize, however, I was in the top 3 that the representatives would decide to give the prize to. This did not discourage me because at the end of that school year, my German teacher was so impressed with my final exam performance and suggested that I teach myself German 3 over the summer. Of course I accepted. Then at the start of this year, I started level 4 German. I took the pre-assessment test, which is given to each student to determine whether he or she is ready for that level. My score was actually one of the highest in my class. So my teacher thought I could be successful in AP German. So I decided that I would be taking level 4 and AP at the same time. I am currently performing very well in both classes, and I feel that I am where I'm supposed to be. In the future, I hope to learn more languages, and I plan on joining the Air Force and possibly becoming a cryptologic linguist. This whole experience has been a great thing for me because I finally discovered something I'm good at.
You want to tell them?
A cryptologic linguist is someone who will listen to radio transmissions and they will then translate it and tell the people what they said from other countries.
And her immediate goal before the Air Force is to study abroad next year in Finland. She's applying to a program to spend the year in Finland. So, thank you, Erica. It's amazing that the school supported us a number of years ago to start language in the middle school. We didn't used to have that when I was a student here. And I really am so thankful that we do that because it allows the students like Erica and Lauren and Erin to reach 5 levels of a language. That's the 5th year is the college level years, the AP level. And Ephrata has had 4s and 5s on the AP exam, all 4s and 5s in the last 2 years, meaning those kids get a number of college credits. And to parents like myself, whose son has gone through both, has gotten AP credit through music and language, it's money in the parents' pockets, and they appreciate that, and the kids appreciate it. Jordan Dover, one of our recent graduates, was awarded 18 credits at Penn State just for his language number 5 exam, because he scored a 5 on the exam. That's a lot of credits. That's a lot of money in a pocket. From studying foreign language. The benefits of studying foreign language, I think the students say it best, but you could argue that if you looked on the actual website, the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages, they found correlations between foreign language and improved standardized testing. They know it improves analytical skills. They know that learning about another language helps you understand your own better. They've proven that creativity is increased with the study of foreign language, and our problem-solving skills are increased when we learn a foreign language. I think what warms my heart the best is that foreign language study can help students develop attitudes that break down barriers of distrust and misunderstanding in a world that's plagued by intolerance and fear. And if we can expand the students' view of the world, like things through foreign exchange and having students come here, then it helps them become more tolerant. And it helps them appreciate cultural diversity. If we can do that, then we've succeeded in helping them become caring, responsible citizens in an ever-shrinking world. And it's my hope and my prayer that schools will always have the funds to provide foreign language education for our young people and for the good of society. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Dr. Troop, for inviting us.
On that one. I think we hit the mark on those 2 programs. 8 wonderful students sharing. I love the quote, Erica, I think it was, who said, through this program, I found something I was good at. I think you're selling yourself a little short by good at, but certainly the passion for her was evident, and in all our guests today in speaking. These programs that aren't required, that are part of what we believe is best for our kids, help them not only reach their full potential, but discover that passion, not just as students, but as humans. The passion that makes them give all that extra effort to achieve goals, the passion that's going to make them successful, whatever path, whether it's a forensic cryptologist, whatever career they decide to get into, that drive, that passion, that willingness to apply extra effort is what's going to make them successful in the future. So that's the first part of our program, and really to give you some real life ammunition to go back when you're in a debate, a conversation, or want to share a story to influence someone else, or just to defend why you believe a certain way on a particular bill. These programs are what that's about. To help you do that, we have a one-page flyer that has the highlights for both of the programs that we featured today, for all of the elected officials and decision makers in here before they leave STEP. We'll make sure you get those so that you can take those back, and if you want to use any of that, that's why we provided it. At this point, I'd like to reintroduce our board president, Tim Stair, to talk about the challenges that we're facing, and two in particular. As you're listening to Mr. Stair, I challenge any school board around for their president to own the budget, the issues, and the challenges that the district faces to a more in-depth degree than Mr. Stair. He does our budget presentation, our public budget presentation, not our business manager. It's our board president who does it. So he owns the responsibility of being a board president and taking taxpayer dollars seriously. So I want to make sure you recognize that, because lots of times we hear budget presentations and it's people who live budget all day long. He has another job. He's a volunteer on the school board owning the budget presentation and the impact of what the two topics that we're talking about today have for effort. Tim?
Thank you, and thanks again to the students. What a great presentation. We always want to make sure in these meetings that we allow you to hear from the students and staff. We're going to move into a couple perspectives from the board's point of view. I want to touch a little bit on PEASers and touch on funding concerns, but I would like to give a little disclaimer because I may get a little over-passionate about it. A wise man once said, "Don't burn bridges that you may need one day to use." Today, some of what I'll share may sound like it's personally against the legislators, but please know I appreciate every legislator in the room and what you do in Harrisburg or Washington. And I'm not irritated with you, I'm mad at you personally, but it gets me riled up and I get very frustrated with the process in Washington, the process in Harrisburg, and all the politicking that goes on and the reams of bureaucracy that don't help us. So if I get a little overexcited, I'm not mad at you. I do know where the door is, so I can get out quicker if I have to. But we know, as a board and as a district staff, we've got to work together with our legislators in the legislative process to make a change. Because we all ultimately are working for our students, our communities, and so forth. PEASers has really made the news a lot. And of course, you know, it's in the headlines, we hear about it. We on the board talk about it a lot because it's such an impactful cost that even with our Act 1 index, we can't cover. And what we looked at here is just some of the subsidies and the monies we've received from the state, and particularly looking at that portion that's allocated towards the PEASers of retirement. And we just have a 6-year history here. And, you know, from one perspective to us as a board, it looks like, hey, we've gotten more and more money every year from the state. That's good. It helps offset that cost. And so we've seen growth of $1.9 million over the last 6 years. Sounds good, like we're getting a lot of money. But you got to really look at the numbers. If we look at this, and we look at the monies we've received, oops, wrong button. We see how it's grown from 15.6 to 17 million over the years, and $1.9 million of that has been that growth of pension funding that we receive from the state. If you net out that pension funding, the equivalent state funding that we received is 15.2 million against where we were at 15.6. So actually today, we're receiving almost $400,000 less than what we did 6 years ago. That means we put the burden on our taxpayers. We've got to raise those funds, or we need to pull it out of our fund balance. It's a burden, and we still have to offer the programs. We still have to do all the fees and the cost that we experience. Looking at it another way, our Act 1 limit this past year was 2.6 or a half a mil, which means that had we gone to our Act 1 limit, we could have raised another $948,000. We did choose to go with a zero increase. But when you net out of that $948,000, the portion that is contributed to retirement, that leaves us only $372,000 that we would have gained to apply to our other costs. And I can tell you all our costs are going up. So PSERS is a big, big issue that does need to be addressed and reformed. And certainly would want our legislators to keep that in mind as you are in the decision-making process and moving forward. We have to balance many things when it comes to finances and decision-making within the district. And I always like to illustrate with a little teeter-totter or seesaw, the balance beam, if you will. And in this case, keeping focus on students and the exemplary programs that we want to offer here, we have to consider the cost to our community and the impact. And are we going to tax? Are we not going to raise taxes? And in the element of PSERS, we also don't want to forget our staff. Promises have been made through the PSERS program that they're all eligible for, and it needs to be fair. And we don't want to be detrimental to either party. We want to be fair to the community. We want to see that our staff receives what they thought they've signed up for. We got to try to balance that all out. It puts us in a real big predicament. And, it is a key question for us is, again, we're very student-focused, but how do we continue to offer our exemplary programs and keep a workable balance? And this is just one area that we've got to keep that workable balance in. Shift gears a little bit to fair funding. There's a lot of news about that as well. There is a Basic Education Funding Commission by our legislators in the state. There's been hearings around the state already. There's a lot in the news about that. And there's also the Campaign for Fair Education Funding, which is a grassroots effort of 40 different organizations that are also addressing that issue, maybe from a little perspective. So there's lots happening. People know that something has to be done because the state can't continue in the direction it has relative to all the funding issues that are out there. And of course, from the state level, it's not just education funding, it's lots of areas. And even our federal government is challenged with just as much. When you speak of fair funding and a funding formula, because it's very difficult for me to figure out how the state calculates what we receive, Pennsylvania is only one of 3 states that does not use a consistently applied formula for their education, basic education process. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Delaware. So we're in a minority when it comes to how is funding determined, calculated, and tabulated. When we speak of fair funding, obviously we're interested in effort of the students, but it's bigger than that. Fair funding is not about more money, so we're not asking for lots more money, either at effort or across all the schools, but we are asking for fair and equitable funding for all students, not just effort. It should be across the state. Whether you're in Pittsburgh, Ephrata, or Timbuktu in northern Pennsylvania, it should be fair. The part that gets me aggravated, and I alluded to before, what happens in Harrisburg, what happens in Washington is, it's got to be a funding process that's nonpartisan and ongoing regardless of who sits in Harrisburg. Because we know when things change, when offices change, directions change. The other plea that I have for the legislators in the room is, studies have been done before, they seem to go into committee, but till they finally get to the full floor, they've been really chopped, sliced, and diced, and look a whole lot different. Please allow the commission recommendations to make it through and at least have a whole floor vote on it, whichever house you may sit in. Fair funding also is an issue for taxpayers. It's got to be an issue. It's got to be fair and equitable for all taxpayers. A couple slides here just to look at. This was done by